Rabban Bar Ṣawma. Rabban Bar Ṣawma, circa 1220 to 1294, Syriac language, Syriac pronunciation, also known as Rabban Ṣawma or Rabban Ṣawma, Chinese, pinyin, lābīn扫務玛, was a Turkic Chinese monk turned diplomat of the Nestorian Church of the East in China. He is known for embarking on a pilgrimage from Mongol-controlled China to Jerusalem with one of his students, Rabban Markos. Due to military unrest along the way, they never reached their destination, but instead spent many years in Ilkhanate-controlled Baghdad. The younger Markos was eventually elected Yahbalahah III, Patriarch of the Church of the East, and later suggested his teacher Rabban Bar Ṣawma be sent on another mission, as Mongol ambassador to Europe. The elderly monk met with many of the European monarchs, as well as the Pope, in attempts to arrange a Franco-Mongol alliance. The mission bore no fruit, but in his later years in Baghdad, Rabban Bar Ṣawma documented his lifetime of travel. His written account of his journeys is of unique interest to modern historians, as it gives a picture of medieval Europe at the close of the Crusades, painted by a keenly intelligent, broad-minded, and statesmanlike observer. Bar Ṣawma's travels occurred prior to the return of Marco Polo to Europe, and his writings give a reverse viewpoint, of the East looking to the West. Early life. Rabban, master, cf. Hebrew rabbi in Judaism. Bar Ṣawma was born circa 1220 in or near modern-day Beijing, known then as Thongdu, later as Khanbalik under Mongol rule. According to Bar Hebraeus, he was of Uyghur origin. Chinese accounts describe his heritage as Ungud, a Turkic people classified as members of the Mongol caste under Yuan law. The name Bar Sauma is Aramaic for son of fasting, though he was born to a wealthy family. He was a follower of the Nestorian faith, Church of the East in China, and became an ascetic monk around the age of 20 and then a religious teacher for decades. Pilgrimage to Jerusalem. In his middle age, Rabban Bar Ṣawma and one of his younger students, Rabban Markos, embarked on a journey from Yuan, China to make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They traveled by way of the former Tungut country, Khotan, Kashgar, Taraz in the Sirdarya Valley, Khorasan, now Afghanistan, Mariga, now Azerbaijan, and Mosul, arriving at Ani in the Kingdom of Georgia. Warnings of danger on the routes to southern Syria turned them from their purpose, and they traveled to Mongol-controlled Persia, the Ilkhanate, where they were welcomed by Patriarch Denhai of the Church of the East. The Patriarch requested the two monks to visit the court of the Mongol Ilkhanate ruler Abaka Khan, in order to obtain confirmation letters for Mar Denha's ordination as Patriarch in 1266. During the journey, Rabban Markos was declared a Nestorian bishop. The Patriarch then attempted to send the monks as messengers back to China, but military conflict along the route delayed their departure, and they remained in Baghdad. When the Patriarch died, Rabban Markos was elected as his replacement, Yahbalahah III, in 1281. The two monks traveled to Mariga to have this election confirmed by Abaka, but the Ilkhanate Khan died before their arrival, and was succeeded by his son, Arghun. It was Arghun's desire to form a strategic Franco-Mongol alliance with the Christian Europeans against their common enemy, the Muslim Mamluk Sultanate at Cairo. A few years later, the new Patriarch Yahbalahah III suggested his former teacher Rabban Bar Ṣawma for the embassy, to meet with the Pope and the European monarchs. Ambassador to Europe. In 1287, the elderly Bar Ṣawma embarked on his journey to Europe, bearing gifts and letters from Arghun to the Eastern Roman Emperor, the Pope, and the European kings. He followed the embassy of another Nestorian, Isa Kelimaki, sent by Arghun to Pope Honorius IV, in 1285. Rabban Bar Ṣawma traveled with a large retinue of assistants, and 30 riding animals. Companions included the Church of the East Christian, Archaon, Sabadinas, Thomas de Anfusis or Tommaso d'Anfossi, who helped as interpreter and was also a member of a famous Genoese banking company, and an Italian interpreter named Agitus or Ughetto. Bar Ṣawma likely did not speak any European languages, though he was known to be fluent in Chinese, Turkish, and Persian. Europeans communicated to him in Persian. He traveled overland through Armenia to either the Empire of Trebizond or through the Sultanate of Rum to the Cimiso on the Black Sea, then by boat to Constantinople, where he had an audience with Andronicus II Palaeologus. Bar Ṣawma's writings give a particularly enthusiastic description of the beautiful Hagia Sophia. He next traveled to Italy, again journeying by ship. As their course took them past the island of Sicily, he witnessed and recorded the great eruption of Mount Etna on June 18, 1287. A few days after his arrival, He also witnessed a naval battle in the Bay of Sorrento on St. John's Day, June 24, 1287, during the conflict of the Sicilian Vespers. The battle was between the fleet of Charles II, whom he calls Ir Chardal O, i.e. Il Re Charles II, who had welcomed him in his realm, and James II of Aragon, King of Sicily, whom he calls Ir Darkon, i.e. Il Re de Aragon. According to Bar Sauma, James II was victorious, and his forces killed 12,000 men. He next traveled to Rome, but too late to meet Pope Honorius IV, who had recently died. So Bar Sauma instead engaged in negotiations with the cardinals, and visited St. Peter's Basilica. Bar Sauma next made stops in Tuscany, Tuscan, and the Republic of Genoa, on his way to Paris. He spent the winter of 1287 to 1288 in Genoa, a famous banking capital. In France, Frangeston, he spent 1 month with King Philip the Fair, who seemingly responded positively to the arrival of the Mongol embassy, gave him numerous presents, and sent one of his noblemen, Gobert de Helville, to accompany Bar Sauma back to Mongol lands. Gobert de Helville departed on February 2, 1288, with 2 clerks Robert de Senlis and Guillaume de Bruyère, as well as arbaletier, crossbowman, Odon de Bourges. They joined Bar Sauma when he later returned through Rome, and accompanied him back to Persia. In Gascony in southern France, which at that time was in English hands, Bar Sauma met King Edward I of England, probably in the capital of Bordeaux. Edward responded enthusiastically to the embassy, but ultimately proved unable to join a military alliance due to conflict at home, especially with the Welsh and the Scots. Upon returning to Rome, Bar Sauma was cordially received by the newly elected Pope Nicholas IV, who gave him communion on Palm Sunday, 1288, allowing him to celebrate his own Eucharist in the capital of Latin Christianity. Nicholas commissioned Bar Sauma to visit the Christians of the East, and entrusted to him a precious tiara to be presented to Maryab Alaha, Rabban Bar Sauma's former student, Markos. Bar Sauma then returned to Baghdad in 1288, carrying messages and many other gifts from the various European leaders. The delivered letters were in turn answered by Argan in 1289, forwarded by the Genoese merchant Buscarella de Ghisolfi, a diplomatic agent for the Ilkhans. In the letter to Philip IV, Argan mentions Bar Sauma. The exchanges towards the formation of an alliance with the Europeans ultimately proved fruitless, and Argan's attempts were eventually abandoned. However, Rabban Bar Ṣawma did succeed in making some important contacts which encouraged communication and trade between the East and West. Aside from King Philip's embassy to the Mongols, the papacy also sent missionaries such as Giovanni da Montecorvino to the Mongol court. Later years. After his embassy to Europe, Bar Sauma lived out the rest of his years in Baghdad. It was probably during this time that he wrote the account of his travels, which was published in English in 1928 as The Monks of Kublai Khan, Emperor of China, or The History of the Life and Travels of Rabban Ṣawma, envoy and plenipotentiary of the Mongol Khans to the kings of Europe, and Markos, who is Maryab Alaha III, became Patriarch of the Church of the East in Asia, translated and edited by Sir E. A. Wallace Budge. The narrative is unique for its observations of medieval Europe during the end of the crusading period, through the eyes of an observant outsider from a culture thousands of miles away. Rabban Bar Ṣawma died in 1294, in Baghdad.